Hi, look, let's not be conventional and do away with top 10s, but rather look at the top 14 or top 15 of things that we should be grateful for. Okay, this is my opinion of what comes on the list and in what order. Obviously, not everybody will agree. Nevertheless, it is a mixture of scientific, philosophical, artistic and creative ideas that make up the list. You cannot please everybody, and that is certainly not my intention anyway. If you like, this is a snapshot in time of how I see things now. Some things have evolved and others by chance. Indeed, does God play dice with the universe? Number 14. What an unusual thing. Water, when it freezes, the ice expands. And this is the reason why ice floats on the top of water. Of course, I'm talking here about natural water, H2O, but if you have got some so-called heavy water, deuterium oxide, then if you made some ice cubes out of this, they wouldn't float on the water, they would sink. They would sink, and that is a fact. But I wouldn't try that because heavy water is poisonous. You know, if ice sank in our oceans, there would be no ice at the North Pole, so it would not be able to reflect the sun's heat. There would still be a South Pole covered by snow, but you see, the North Pole is just plain ice frozen on top of the sea. So this may have stopped winter in its tracks. Just imagine there'd be no icebergs as they would sink to the bottom of the sea, and so the Titanic would not have sunk. Although I suppose it could have succumbed to an iceberg lurking underneath the waves. Do you like ice skating? Well, this would not be possible unless, of course, a shallow pond froze completely. It's always dangerous to skate on ponds, so I wouldn't do this. If ice didn't expand when it got colder, I can't see any reason why it would not rain or snow. But whatever, without natural water bucking the trend of expanding when it freezes, the world today would indeed be a very, very different place to what it is now. But I expect no list like this would be complete without mentioning the discovery of penicillin. The substance was discovered in 1928 by Alexander Fleming, who was a Scottish scientist. It is so good at treating infections. No doubt you have seen signs at doctor surgeries saying that antibiotics will not stop the common cold no matter how much you throw at it. Doctors nowadays are a bit reluctant to prescribe antibiotics because that may enable them to become totally resistant to certain diseases. That means that wounds and operations would be difficult because of a vastly increased risk of infection. So having an operation nowadays is routine for certain illnesses, but imagine a world where even the slightest cut could get infected and become life-threatening. What are we going to do when antibiotics become totally ineffective against all known diseases? Yes, we would be in a mess, wouldn't we? But yeah, that could happen. Now, the next thing we should be grateful for is the fact that Jupiter has not deflected an asteroid or comet on a direct collision with Earth. It may have done before mankind was on the Earth, but we should be grateful for that. Now, the asteroids, as you probably know, are orbiting around the Sun between Jupiter and Mars, and I guess some of these actually impinge upon the domain of Jupiter every so often. So if they're travelling towards Jupiter and Jupiter's gravity can't keep the asteroid, it could get slung on a collision course with Earth. How dreadful that would be. Scientists, you know, think that that's how the dinosaurs were made extinct all those years and years and years ago. due to a hit by an asteroid, a very large one, which wiped out the dinosaurs. I mean, maybe this is how the world's going to end, being struck by an asteroid or a large comet or whatever. Or it may be that, you know, the sun is dying, and in a few billion years' time it's going to get so much larger. Surprising fact that, isn't it? You'd think if it was dying, you think it wouldn't get larger, but it's going to get much, much larger, so that its circumference is going to reach the Earth at some time, and even Pluto, which used to be the 9th planet. So that's a long time in the future, you know, so don't worry about that. So if an asteroid deflected by Jupiter was on a collision course with Earth, what would happen? Well, we've got scientists watching these things, but we would have a bit of warning, and we would, I would imagine, have to fire one or more tactical nuclear weapons at the asteroid, either to alter its course or to break it up. Because if it was broken up and the little bits came down to Earth, that might be just as bad as if the whole asteroid came down to Earth. Now, at number 11 is the discovery and use of metals, without which our world would be very, very different to what it is today. There would have been no Bronze Age, no Iron Age, no aeroplanes, no cars, and the list just goes on and on. You know, there are not many elements that are found naturally occurring in nature. It's a paradox in the sense that gold is sometimes found in its natural state and is a very expensive metal. So when prehistoric man found gold, they must have been thrilled to bits. It looks lovely, it doesn't react with hardly anything. There is an acid that will react with it, but it is very, very unreactive, and it's got that lovely golden lustre on it. I guess Stone Age man found other elements by accidentally, if you like, burning ores of metal in big fires and then finding liquid metal dribbling out. You know, if you heat strongly cinnabar, which is an ore of mercury, you'll get mercury globules coming out from the ore, and you think, well, how on earth did that lovely mysterious metal come from a lump of rock? Strange, isn't it? It's a little bit like sodium chloride, common sea salt. It never fails to amaze me that that is comprised of sodium and chlorine, two particularly nasty elements. Sodium, for example, dissolves very vigorously in water to give a highly alkaline solution. And chlorine, well, you may well remember, have heard about in the First World War, where chlorine was used on the battlefield, and it is a terrible, terrible gas to be affected by. Green colour, and you need to be very, very careful with chlorine. So again, you know, just imagine how different the world would be without metals. Aluminium is so light, and it's been used so extensively in aircraft. Very, very light substance, aluminium. Greenhouses are often made from aluminium. Now, what about copper? Copper is used for wire to conduct electricity. Well, if we didn't have copper, we might have to use, I don't know, silver to conduct electricity. It'd be a lot more expensive. You know, what I'm saying is that we are so super reliant on certain elements, we just take them for granted. Have you ever heard of tungsten, liquid, and gaseous tungsten? I say this because tungsten has got the highest melting point of any metal in the periodic table. With the multitude of planets and out there waiting to be discovered, there may be planets with seas of molten tungsten, also clouds of gaseous tungsten, and when it rains in searingly hot tungsten rain. Yeah, quite possible that could be happening somewhere.